Hello, I'm Nate Crowley from Rock Paper Shotgun, and today you're going to learn how to trash a Dwarf Fortress. Now this is Dwarf Fortress. Just before I load it up, a quick introduction for those who haven't heard of it or maybe have and don't quite know what the deal is. Quite simply, Dwarf Fortress might be the most interesting game ever made. It might even be the best. It looks pretty weird. The whole world is represented by ASCII characters, so letters, numbers and symbols. And the control scheme, which is currently keyboard only, feels like it might have been lifted from some sort of alien church organ. Yeah, it's idiosyncratic. Dwarf Fortress is a passion project created by two brothers, the programmer Tarn Adams and his brother Zach, who designed it with him. Now, they're now working with publisher Kitfox to bring a more user-friendly version of the game to Steam. And when that happens, the game is going to look a lot different. It's going to have a proper, nice sort of spritey tile set to play in. And it's going to have mouse support and things like that. So before that happens, I wanted to take you back to a favourite fortress of mine. You may have come across the Basement of Curiosity. This was a series I started for Rock Paper Shotgun back in January of 2019 and featured the development of this fortress. It was a long old series, 23 episodes in all, and I'll see if I can include a link to that in the show notes below. I am actually starting a new Dwarf Fortress Let's Play series later on in this event, in fact, and I'm doing it using a special build of the game provided to me by Tarn Adams himself. But more about that when it comes. I don't think it's right to leave things unfinished. So today, I'm returning to the Basement of Curiosity one last time to bring about its end. So, let me show you around the fortress. We're up in the sky at the moment, which is why it's all sort of blue, because Dwarf Fortress gets around the third dimension by being displayed in layers, kind of like the slices of an MRI scan, if you like. So we're going right up in the sky now, completely blue, and let's gradually move downwards, slice by slice, until we find the very highest point in the map, which is the Mayor's Tower of this fortress. It's made of wood, the statues on the top. The top story is a little room with a couple of thrones for sitting and pondering in. Someone's left something on the floor there. Oh, it's a knackered alpaca wool robe. Lovely stuff. And here's a little dining room. The lovely view out over, you see here we've got the treetops just visible, because this is a rainforest area. And the bedroom with its green glass windows. And someone's left a tattered cave spider silk glove on their bed. That'll be the mayor's bed, and they're clearly quite messy. All dwarves are quite messy. And you can see now there's a little tree house here where the fort's lumberjacks hang out, again with green glass windows looking out of the trees. You've got a pomegranate tree here, you can see those red dots. That's open space above pomegranate fruit. You get used to visualising it. And here you can see wooden tree trunks. And there's branches, and those circles are trunks. You're starting to get the hang of it, maybe. So, you can see here the outline of the fort's wall above ground. You can see it's a wooden stockade there. What are those red patches? Well, let's have a look. Those are some kumquats, which are little bitter oranges with sweet skins. I used to grow them actually, delicious fruit. And they've fallen there from a kumquat tree. What's this? Some pomegranates. So you can imagine the smell of rotting fruit in this humid, warm rainforest environment. And maybe the smell of weathered, maybe mossy wood on all of these structures. And here you can see my dwarves have dug a trench around the outside of their stockade. And here is the ground floor, if you like, of the fortress. It was built in a valley originally, and then that wall was put up around it. And you got here, used to be some animal pens, and here is a sort of a wooden hall with a load of sick on the ground. And here's a yard with a yak skeleton and a water buffalo calf mangled skeleton and a stray dog skeleton and a cow partial skeleton and a stray donkey foal partial skeleton. Oh dear, it's been a while since I loaded up this save. I've just remembered I left the fortress in a bit of a state, I think it's fair to say. But we'll discover it together. Oh, there's a silver nest box. I think that used to be used by some geese. Now, here's the moat at the entrance, and you'll see there's a copper bridge covered in sick, which has been closed up. And that's because the fortress is shut off at the moment. It's under siege by goblins, some of which are hanging out in this pond, along with a mangled skeleton of a dwarf and a living astronomer. Okay. Yeah, the fort gets visitors sometimes, philosophers and scientists and things who maybe are disappointed to find the gates closed and so sit in ponds chatting with invading goblins. Because why not? And just as an aside, you can see how many scholars and poets visited the fortress before we closed it off. And there, some of them are listening to stories, some of them are just hanging out. Asob here is pondering large sums. And it seems one of our engineers, along with several scholars and guests, are discussing the screw. Sounds a bit dirty, doesn't it? Discussing the screw. Well, we'll leave them to it. But we'll take a look at what's going on in the fortress in a second. As I say, I won't recap the whole story of the basement, but I'll give you a broad outline of what happened in its first season of 23 written episodes. And I guess the best segue into that story comes in this pond. Remember this astronomer just chilling next to a mangled skeleton? I did notice, see that red there? That's not fallen fruit. Oh no. That's blood. Now, there's some goblin blood, which makes sense. Some of the goblins will have been injured by traps and having a bit of a bleed. But what's this? A pool of Lorban woman clasps blood. And if we tab out, you can see a pool of Lorban woman clasps dwarf blood. Now, Lorbam is the mayor. She's what you call an interesting character. She's not been outside for ages either, but she's a bit spooky. And you remember I said how a lot of Dwarf Fortress's interesting features happen when its bugs crash into each other. Yeah, so Lorbam's blood has been appearing mysteriously on surfaces ever since the year the fortress was founded, 7 years ago. You can see it's on the ground here too. So it's become known as the Haunted Blood, and there's a bit of a mythology around it. What's that green thing on the floor? I don't think I recognise that. Oh, it's just a brimstone pedestal. An amethyst pedestal. Oh yeah, at one point a werepanda showed up with a book it had written on something and beat a load of people to death with it. So I put its corpse on a pedestal outside, but well, that appears to have been nicked now. So, this is Lorbum. And her motto is, the best way to get what you want out of life is to work for it. My gosh, has Lorbum worked for it? As I say, she was the founder of this fortress and its original mayor, although she's not the mayor anymore. She's the fortress's beastmaster. And she came here to found the Basement of Curiosity with one goal in mind. Lorbum wanted to start a zoo. And her big objective was to breed chimps here. Don't ask why, that was just what she wanted. Here's the tavern, which I believe is called the Great Harvester. Yes, the Great Harvester. All visitors welcome. My gosh, there's been a lot of fatal brawls in this tavern. And there might actually be one going on right now. So, this is where the magic happens. This is Lorbum's floor of the fortress. And let's zoom in now. Because I lied, Dwarf Fortress does have some mouse support. You can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. What have we got here? Well, we got the reptile house down here. There's a skink in there, and a knoll, a toad, and green glass cages. This is the turtle room. Alligator snapping turtle, and a normal snapping turtle. There's a turkey wandering around. So I guess that's a reptile. Rattlesnakes, a lot of rattlesnakes in this fortress. There's some stories attached to that. This is the big cat room. We got, well, a hyena, not really a cat, is it? And a cougar attached to gold chains. And the dwarves can view them through this nice window made of gems. Lion tamarin, sort of monkey. Cage with a dog in it. That was the basement. That was the basement's very first exhibit. Along with this, well, it's a specetane pedestal, and on it is the corpse of a donkey, which you can see represented by the capital D. It's because the dwarves forgot to feed it, and so they at least encased its body on a gemstone pedestal in a green glass cage as a mark of respect. This is the Hall of Random Bollocks. What we got in here? We got grackles, blue jays, grackles, bush tits, birds, sparrows, yeah, more birds. Oh, this is obviously the aviary, isn't it? Lorikeets, parakeets, owls, crows, storks, and peregrines and kestrels. So you can see the dwarves have collected quite a few animals over the years. This is, oh yeah, this is the room where we force goblins to fight with things. And it seems there's still a couple of goblins in cages. And a dancer, a very unfortunate dancer, who's probably rightly locked in there now. Yeah, there was a lot of farm animals causing the frame rate to slow down, so we had a bit of a goblin thunderdome with them and never really cleared up the mangled skeletons. Not exactly what you call a utopia, this fortress. More animals. What have we got? Otters, bears, kangaroos, warthogs, minks, wild boars, koalas, wolves, weasels, a gold pedestal with Obok skeleton. Obok was the tiger, pet of one of the dwarves, who was sent out to fight. You remember that self-published werepanda I mentioned earlier? Yeah, Obok saw it off at the gates, but lost their tiger life in the process. And this is a feather from a giant winged worm that came up from the underground. Sadly, never captured it for the zoo, but we got a relic of it in there anyway. And yes, this is the goblin room where we keep captured goblins. This is a room with some dingoes in. Lorbum has spent many years training dingoes. She's had mixed success at getting them tame. And here we can find Lorbum herself, the Beastmaster. Now, we had a look at her description and some of her opinions earlier. There were a few too many to read out. It was more than one screen of text. What was she killed over the years? Only one rattlesnake. She's a peaceful dwarf. And, yes, Medtob Nilramtar. So, Nebtob is a jabberer, which is a giant, terrifying bird from the underground. A huge monster that lurks in caverns deep under the earth. It uses its wide beak to reach down and pluck up unsuspecting intruders. His feathers are purple, his skin is white, his eyes are yellow. Yeah, Lorbum captured this jabberer, and in fairness to her, she managed to train it, so it now follows her around, and it's pretty hardcore. Oh, now, I'm going to not show you that, because here is a legend. This is Id, the snake buster, and his pet tiger, Sarvesh. Id is currently heading somewhere with a wheelbarrow to store it. And you can see, his pet lion there is following him as well. It is an astonishing dwarf. He was pretty much useless when he first arrived in year 1. He was a sheep shearer and a dancer. But the fort didn't have a military. And Lorbum, the map was kind of clogged with rattlesnakes. Because they were loaded on the map, no other entities were coming in. And Lorbum was hoping some chimps would come in so she could capture them and breed them for the zoo. And so what she did, instead of having a military, she conscripted this dancer, Id, to go out and just kick a load of snakes to death so they could make room for other animals. He did that. He got bitten a lot in the process. Id's body is pretty much entirely scars. His beloved first daughter was born while he kicked the head off a snake at the exact same moment. I actually drew quite a touching illustration of that. So yeah, it's an interesting character. In fact, he's got his bedroom here by the pub, where it used to be his bedroom. It seems to have been taken over by bards. But I digress. Id did eventually kick all the snakes to death, but more snakes just came into the fortress, or into the jungle around the fortress, and in the end, Lorbum had to acquire all the animals she has by trading from elves or capturing them from the underground. Eventually, though, and I think this is year 8 of the fortress, in the 6th year, I believe, some elves did arrive, and with them, they had chimps. Lorbum now keeps them in this stone pit. And there's a lady chimp, and a gentleman chimp, and a little baby chimp boy. They live in a hole, surrounded by gold statues deep underground, which might not be the kind of chimp husbandry I'd favour in real life, but, in this fortress, it's luxury. Lorbum is very keen on collecting animals, but she's not so hot on the welfare. Do you see this gold floor here with these 2 gold statues? That's concealing a horrible secret. Underneath that is the bird hole. Fortress had too many birds, so Lorbum put them in a hole. They're all there, along with loads of slugs and snails and worms and vomit, because it's so horrible in there. The floor here is absolutely rinsed in the blood of chickens, ducks, turkeys, and peafowl. The birds that are in here are absolute brutes by now, because they've been having a non-stop fight in a lightless pit full of birds for 8 years. Yeah, these things happen in this game. It can get really dark. I really can't stress enough that I don't condemn. I don't. Oh my goodness. I don't condone forcing birds to fight in holes at all. But that was the pragmatic thing to do, and so this blood-drenched nightmare is the result. Let's just look at this rooster who's wounded so many other birds that he's gained a name, Zasset. His neck is dented. His left foot is dented. His left upper leg is dented. If you look, he's covered in scars from all the various avian maimings. Yeah, you can see when you list an animal or a dwarf's body parts, anything in white is intact. Yeah. Nothing much in here is intact. So, yeah, that's the bird hole. Oh, God. That turkey shattered. Yeah, I think we've probably seen enough of that TBQH with you. And in these rooms, loads of goat and donkey teeth. Yeah. Yeah. This is a room full of dingo bones. It's a really dark place, actually, now I come back to it. And that reminds me, we came here today with a good reason. As I said at the very top of the show, we're going to trash the Dwarf Fortress. Because the basement has had its day. And now I reminded myself of the bird hole. Yeah, I'm not sure it deserves to exist anymore. Anyway, these are the bedrooms and the dormitories where the dwarves will sleep. This is the Dwarven Atom Smasher, where a machine smashes rocks into not existing anymore to preserve the frame rate. Can't really explain that now. And this is the central stairway, and we're going deep down into the earth now. These are the forges. There's an elf wandering around. Who are you? An elf poet walking around the forge, probably laughing at it, knowing elves. That's the ore stockpile. It's running a bit low. This is the library. You can see scholars in there. What are they up to? Oh, a swordsman. Scholar of a sort, I suppose. And the tombs. Golden tombs. Golden coffins. With copper walls. Green glass windows. Only in this case, there's a red glass window. Or rather a red gem window. Because I think the dwarf in here did something naughty. Yeah, the fact that they're inside it in 7 separate pieces probably gives a hint as to that. Terrorist, what did you do? Nah, it's lost to history. You'll find it in the write-up, I'm sure. Below even the tombs, there's the jail, which has been the site of some hellish scenes. And a bard, who I think started a fight years ago and has been imprisoned ever since. I think the sheriff might have forgotten. So there's probably no hope of release for them. That's the hole where we keep the dead goblins and their teeth. And then right on down, we're so deep now. We enter the underworld, labyrinth of dingy caves. And these are the troglodyte traps. I don't know if you've ever seen the film The Descent about frightening underground men. Yeah, I think troglodytes are a bit like those. There's a family just kind of hanging out there. We've been catching them in traps. You can see those little flashing sigils there. Cave spider webs on muddy slopes. It's damp and cold down here. It's an unpleasant cave. Oh, and right deep under the earth, there's a child. Having a completely normal one, by the look of it. Now, what are they up to? Playing make-believe. Seems legit. So here we are at the very bottom of the fortress, in the pool below the dingy hole where that child was playing make-believe. And here is a scholar swimming in chilly subterranean water. Water that's polluted with the blood of a giant bat, with the blood of dwarves. You can probably guess how that happened. Mud and black sand. Oh, and of course, a pool of the haunted blood. Just a scholar having a swim. Completely ordinary. And it says they are, this visitor is ready to leave. But they won't have much luck because the fort's, as I said, sealed off underground and blockaded by goblins. Not classic. So how are we going to end this fort? Well, Dwarf Fortress is less a management game, and it's more, as you've probably gathered by now, a means of facilitating storytelling. What's that running around the tunnels? Giant rat, cool. The dwarves all have their own inner lives. They have their own things that they want to do. And left to its own devices, the game will do a lot of interesting stuff. I suppose you're there almost as a sort of a games master. And it's role-playing to an extent. You're thinking about what the dwarves want based on their personalities and how you can direct the fortress to help them achieve those goals. And of course, we've built this fine zoo for Lorbum based on the fact that she was really into beasts, and I decided, it wasn't a bloody democracy, that this fortress existed to become a famous zoo where she wanted to breed chimps. And she's bred her chimps now, and that's why the main series of this fortress ended. It had been a victory of sorts. But I'm wondering what Lorbum wants now. She's just running around there. She's having a meal, I think. Eating. What's she having a nash on? Gosh, she's wearing a lot of jewellery made of granite and that. Well, whatever she's eaten, I think she's wolfed it down already. And she's covered in her own blood. But sorry, yes, what does she want now? Well, she's not going to get any more animals from the elves because of the blockade. There's going to be no more trade caravans coming in. So that source of animals is cut off. Yes, there are more beasts coming in from the caverns, but she's got a giant bat, she's got some troglodytes. I mean, we haven't captured that giant rat, but are we really desperate to? No, I think at this point, Lorbum has become quite strange with the isolation. There's a whole bloody synchronised swimming team of academics down in that pit. And I think Lorbum now has kind of lost track of reality. She just wants more and more big, impressive beasts. And there is something she can do. I'm going to remove these designations. Because the most dangerous game of all in Dwarf Fortress is not man. And minor spoilers follow, in as much as there are spoilers in this game. The most dangerous game of all is demons. Procedurally generated demons who live in a terrifying underworld, deep beneath everything else. So Lorbum wants to break into hell and imprison the demons for her zoo. I'm sure this will go swimmingly. So she commands the miners to dig a stairway right down to the bottom of the world. And there we are, it's designated. Now, to give you an idea how far down that is, this is the bottom level of the fortress as it stands. And that's at level 90, the 90th story of the world, starting at its very bottom. Ground level is floor 146. So 56 stories above that, the height of a modest skyscraper. And the very top of the fortress is just a few stories above that. So most of it is below ground. But the depth we're going to dig to is nearly twice as deep as the height of the whole fortress as it stands. We're going to go really deep. Some might say too greedily and too deep. And if you know your Tolkien, or if you've just seen Lord of the Rings because they're cool films, you'll know that's often the undoing of dwarves. So I've now lifted the restrictions that were stopping dwarves from going outside the borders of the underground so they can dig that hole. But I've just realised this is making them flood onto the surface as well. So let's just pray none of them have the bright idea to go outside where the goblins are, or this fort could end in a very different way. They're gathering wood by the looks of it from the old trees. Oh, and lovely. A lot of them are barking up great big piles of sick because they've been underground for so long, they've become cave adapted and they can't bear the light. It's not stopping them there. Oh, and you can see there's that war tiger. Look, oh, covered in blood, including Lorbums, because everything's got a bit of the old haunty bee on it. There's a legendary bard holding a book called Unknown Mountain Halls. And I guess, yeah, no, there's Id. Oh, and let's look at what he's got in his inventory. That's right, stitches upon stitches upon stitches and a load. What's he wearing? A tattered dress, a single silk glove, one sock, two bracelets, a monkey leather cap, an amulet, some knackered trousers, another amulet, and an earring, and oh my gosh, he's got a lot of amulets and earrings, and another sock and one shoe. Has he at least got a sock on both feet? Yeah. Dwarf's got taste. He's got multiple gloves on though. And he's covered in his own blood. You carry on, Ed. You just do what you do. I really will miss you. Which I can't say of too many dwarves in this fortress. Right, well the chief miner, Tirist, who's been there since the start and is a legendary miner, appears to be currently... Oh, and Nil. In fact, if I remember rightly, Nil and Tirist became lovers. And they're both so chillingly strong, I can only imagine that their nightly recreation is something like a sort of a X-rated Rammstein video. It's these two dwarven miners just going at it, discussing the screw, as it were. Because I want to keep this family friendly. And to be fair, Dwarf Fortress is pretty family friendly if you ignore all the horrific bird-on-bird mauling. It's not a seedy game, although the implications are there. But as with everything, it's what your imagination makes of it. trying not to let my imagination dwell too hard on the miners and their fun. Actually, it's not Nil or Tirist doing the digging, but Cyril, a bard. I'm just going to put a parallel staircase in with that, because much as I appreciate that bard helping, they're not the best, and I know Nil and Tirist will carve through this stuff like wet tissue. So, let's actually dig out a 4-way shaft, which in itself sounds a bit discussing, the screw. Yeah, there we go. God, that dwarf up above in the stoneworks just keeps making masterpiece bins. That's why goblins come in the end. Just if you get too many good bins, probably all the golden coffins don't help either. But yeah, the game tracks the cumulative value of your fortress, and the higher it gets, the more the goblins want it. So in they come. Right, now you can see there, now that the professionals have got to work, that hole is really getting deep quick. While they're digging, I will introduce you to the mayor, because they're an interesting character. She's called Urist Cryptbrands. The quest for knowledge never ends, are the words she lives by, at the moment at least. And actually, she's a lot less traumatized than most of the dwarves in the fortress. I mean, she does a little bit of staring blankly at dingo carcasses, but if you look at those words, euphoric, interested, enraptured, disgusted, dwelling upon, retching on a miasma, but generally she's having an alright time. She lives well, she's had a couple of kids in the fort. She took over from Lorbum as mayor. She was a newcomer, and whereas Lorbum admittedly has pretty much no social skills, Urist was quite charismatic. She was a bit of a snob though, and early in the fort's history there was a bit of civil discontent, shall we say, between the Lorbum loyalists and the newcomers to the fort. Oh dear, reindeers starved to death. No time to worry about such things. Anyway, it was brewing into a bit of a Barney until Urist was deposed herself by a large-girthed, large-hearted dwarf called Dashmob, who was known as the War Mayor for his rapid program of militarization. And that lasted about 2 seasons, because Dashmob got ganked running into a load of goblins. And Urist became the mayor again. And she's been mayor ever since, and I think her and Lorbum have settled their differences. Lorbum, as I say, was never a people dwarf, and she was never much of an administrator either, whereas Urist is pretty competent. She's done a decent job of running the fort. I say as some camels starved to death as well. That's unfortunate. And generally leaves Lorbum to the work of running the zoo where the camels are starving to death. So yeah, I guess that is Lorbum's fault. Let's have a look at what the dwarves are eating at the moment. Oh, because of course we keep the food down in the kitchens of the tavern. What's on the menu? Goat meat roast. Prepared reindeer kidney roast. This is a stack of 13 exceptional prepared reindeer kidney roast. The ingredients are exceptionally minced dingo tallow, superiorly minced prepared yak eye, superiorly minced prepared cow kidney, and exceptionally minced prepared reindeer kidney. Now it really annoys me. That's like when you buy cherry juice at the supermarket, but it turns out it's actually 70% apple juice, but that doesn't sound as nice. So they've named it after the 8% cherry juice that's in it. This is the same. You think you're going to be eating some delicious reindeer kidneys, and what you're actually eating is a load of dingo tallow and yak eyes. Classic. How goes the digging? Oh. Michelangelo's David. We are getting deep now. Ah. Semi-molten rock. So I guess at this point we can't dig through that because it's a bit warm. So we're going to dig some tunnels out in all directions. I'm going to try and find a way through it. Well, we've had no luck here. We've just found semi-molten rock. So we're trying to find new ways round on the level above. I'm going to keep skipping bits of time here because it may take a little while, but we'll get there. I'm having the metalsmiths forge loads and loads and loads of metal picks so the whole fort can get involved in the digging work. And here we go. We've discovered the Great Magma Sea. And raw adamantine. Now that is the most precious mineral in the game. But, well, it's got a greater significance than that. Oh wow. Yeah, we've been digging through a pillar. That's how we got so far down. Now then, we've got to think carefully about this. You see that there? That is a pillar of raw adamantine. And that leads down to where we want to go and where Lorben is going to find her stuff. So we're going to dig over to that from up above it. And we're going to dig on down through it. Simple as chips. Ah, what's that on the stairs? Oh, shit. Oh no. Yeah, that'll be magma flowing in. Oh no! Own the bard. Sorry, buddy. I think this is the end for you. Yeah, your foot's kind of burnt off there, Chief. Oh, what a way to go. Oh, well, here's a complication. To get to the adamantine pillar, we've had to dig through another underworld, which is a deeper, even more frightening underworld. Very good. Well, there's probably going to be all kinds of horrible gribblies coming in now, but that's what Lorben wanted, and we're going to keep digging till we get to the horriblest gribblies of them all. Let's see if anything else has shown up down there. Floating guts. There's floating guts. Oh God. I mean, when you enter a biome where the main wildlife is floating guts, it's not the best sign. What's that in the water? Creepy crawlers. And these elven poets are just wandering out into this hellish underground wilderness. I mean, yeah, be my guest, folks. Have there been any fights yet down there? No, just the hens battering each other in the bird hole, I guess. Oh no, that bard has nowhere left to run. I think they're perched on the top of a staircase in a room that's slowly filling up with lava. It's still just their foot burnt, but I don't think that's going to go well for them. You've still just got to get to that adamantine pillar. So there is a sort of a victory condition now. It's whether Lorben achieves her goal of getting down to break into hell before something horrific comes out of this underworld to do in the fortress first. It's quite exciting, really, don't you think? And here we go. You have discovered an eerie cavern. The air above the dark stone floor is alive with vortices of purple light and dark boiling clouds. Seemingly bottomless glowing pits mark the surface. And this is it. It's the underworld, folks. Ooh. And digging down there is Ineth, the third of our original miners. Yeah, it's built like a stairway to heaven, only to hell. Horrifying screams come from the darkness below. Ah, good. Well, Lorben must be dead excited at this. Keep digging. Ah, some scholars and nobles have come to visit. Really pick the moments. We're going to have to build a staircase there, where there's a gap. Let's just see if... Oh. Winged demons. Seems clear enough. It's a great scaly leech with thin wings of stretched skin and undulating rhythmically. It is fat. Sounds good for the zoo. Is this another one of them? Yep. Pterosaur demon. An enormous feathered pterosaur. Well, a bit like a bird, I suppose. It has a pair of branching antennae and it undulates rhythmically. Its feathers are long and broad. Beware its hunger for warm blood. A phantom of brine, a great quadruped composed of salt. It has 3 broad horns and it squirms and fidgets. Yep, tested for ADHD, mate. Woodpecker monster, great 3-eyed woodpecker. It has 2 short horns and it is slavering. Its pink feathers are fluffed out. Beware its deadly dust. Martin demon. Sounds like an insurance salesman. Hello, I'm Martin Demon. And he's a great Martin with external ribs. 2 long straight tails and a bloated body. Its eyes glow lime. Its grey feathers are long and sparse. Beware its poisonous gas. God, beware a lot of things. An enormous humanoid composed of ash with a broad shell and a bloated body, a poisonous sting. Martin Demon's 2 brothers there. A swallow fiend, a great swallow with external ribs. A lot of bird variants down here. A grey haunt, a towering quadruped composed of ash. Oh, I'm not sure about all these towering quadrupeds. A towering pterosaur composed of flame. I think it's probably at this point that Lorben maybe realises she's bitten off more than she can chew. Ah, and those are the demons. That's Martin Demon, specifically. Oh, and of course, they can fly. The fights have begun. It begins with a spear dwarf fighting the steam monster. Must be one of the adventurous mercenaries, trying his luck against the new wildlife and unconscious, but seemingly through tiredness. I guess just swinging away at steam. It's not really a fight you can win, but maybe it's not one you can lose, depending on how hot the steam is. Maybe it's just like, you know, nice steam coming off a shower. Oh no, Rakust the lumberjack has been interrupted by a winged demon. Rakust is one of our original dwarves. I hope he's alright. Yeah, a lot of people are being interrupted by winged demons now. I think there's blood on the staircase. That's a dead, mangled human scholar holding a book called The Truth About Dessert. Let's head up to the fortress and see what's going on. Oh, who's this? Always good when you're ascending the staircase to find series of mutilated bodies. Yeah, that's Rakust. Let's see how he went. Oh no, there's a baby having a fight. There's a lot of dingoes and weasels having fights there. There's a winged demon biting a baby's head off. Yeah, sorry about that. At least it went for a cave spider first. Ah, here's the fight with Rakust. That was one of our original 7 dwarves. And see all those amulets they're wearing. That's the death of them. It's what the demons will grab you by. Yeah, and looks like it's just... Oh no. Gnashed his limbs up. Bad news. Oh no, this is a bloodbath. This winged demon is called Fiend Seized, the Infinite Labyrinth, and... well, it's taken a hit in the wing. Who managed that? And looking at the combat logs, I think it was a glassmaker, so fair play to them. But I can't let this rampage of terror go on unabated. So, we're going to send Id in. It's your time, my friend. We're going to send Id to kill him, and we're also going to send the diamond shocks. I can't even remember what they were, but they're a squad of some kind. Now let's follow Id to what I fear will be his last mission. I mean, yes, he's already pretty injured, but don't worry about that. He was like that to begin with. Let's follow him. Charging down the stairways. No time for farewells. There's work to be done. Well, we're back. And I don't know what to tell you. Id was rushing towards the demon, and the second he reached it, the game crashed. Id, the snake buster, tamed mine, hit that devil with such force, he broke the universe. An entire decade of kicking weasels to pieces had imbued him with the strength necessary to shatter reality itself. And you know what? That was the only thing that could have saved the fortress. Because Dwarf Fortress is always in Iron Man mode by default. It only saves the game when you exit. You can't save it otherwise. So once something's happened, it's irreversible. Unless the game crashes. So we're now back to where we were at the start of the hour, as the fortress grinds along peacefully with its starving livestock, its fighting birds, and its giant underground stores of goat teeth. The underground, as I will show you, is unpunctured. The dwarves had never seen the underworld. The steam monster, the winged demon, Martin Demon, and all of his angry brothers are nothing but a bad dream. Nothing but a figment of Lorbum's imagination. And there's it, with his wheelbarrow and his pack of tame tigers, leopards and jaguars. The dwarf who saved the basement of curiosity by destroying time. Does it know of his noble act in a parallel universe? Does Lorbum know, somehow? Perhaps through the unholy insight offered to her by the haunted blood. Who can be sure? But I guess, of all the things I expected from today's session, an intact fortress by the end of it was not one of them. And yet here we are, back where we started. There's an urban legend, isn't there, that if an execution fails to kill a prisoner in some act of God, I think it's some medieval thing, then it was assumed to be God's will that the prisoner lived, and so that the death sentence was lifted. And I think that's what we got to do with the basement. It didn't want this place to die. So I'm going to leave it in peace. Maybe we'll come back to it one day. Maybe I'll leave it here, just ticking along with Lorbum's chimp breeding project in its conceptual space. Either way, it's time to move on. And later on during EGX Online, I'm going to be starting a new series, as I said at the top of the show, which I will hopefully link in the show notes below, if there is such a thing. So I will see you for that. I have been Nate Crowley from Rock Paper Shotgun, and I salute Id the Snakebuster Tamed Mine, destroyer of realities, saviour of universes. Goodbye.